Hello, and welcome to New Day Federal Way. I'm Kathy Arns. Last year was a busy year at the city, and a lot of changes are underway. Some of the highlights of the year include the Downtown Development Project, the groundbreaking of the Performing Arts and Event Center, public safety, the Community Center, and new retail and office businesses that have moved into Federal Way.
Well, welcome. Before we get started, we've got Deputy Mayor Burbidge, who is going to introduce our council members that are here and just say a brief few words. Let's give the Deputy Mayor a big Federal Way welcome.
I am just delighted to be here this evening, and I'm especially pleased to see such a wonderful turnout on such a nice evening, that you're willing to spend your time focusing on the city, the community, and the future of our city. So I'm here to provide that welcome and also to introduce the rest of the council. We have Councilmember Duclos here. Deanie Duclos, would you wave at us there? Councilmember Duclos. She chairs our Finance, Economic Development, and Regional Affairs Committee very ably. And this is Deanie's neighborhood. She likes to remind us, absolutely. So we also have Councilmember Susan Honda here. Susan, could you wave at us? There she is. Okay. Susan is a very active council member and last year chaired the Parks, Recreation, Human Services, and Public Safety Council Committee. And she also serves on some regional committees, the Board of Health for one, and others. And I believe Councilmember Moore was planning to come. Do you know if he's here yet? Councilmember Martin Moore has a full-time job in Seattle and may not be here yet. So maybe we'll introduce him when he arrives. How does that sound?
And Deputy Mayor, we've also have Liz Drake with the School Board.
Liz Drake, Federal Way School Board Chair. Welcome, Liz. We're very pleased to have you here. We have a great partnership with the school district, and there are wonderful things going on with their programs. So thank you for being here. There you go. All right, neighborhood folks here tonight. Wonderful. Thank you very much. And I am just excited about all that's going on in our city. We're working intensively on so many areas. We had a lodging tax advisory committee meeting this morning and had representatives of the various tourism venues in our city, and which provide a lot of activity and interest for our citizens, but also provide interest for the many visitors that come to our city. So stay tuned for that. We'll be giving you over time some data on the numbers of visitors who come to Federal Way and enhance our economic development as well. So thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy the evening.
Neighborhood Connection is really all about making sure that we get City Hall out into the neighborhoods. Now, I live just right around the corner, and my son goes to school very close to here, a little 8-year-old Benjamin. He's a lot of fun. But I want to say something before we get started. I've got a brief presentation. I'm going to talk about all kinds of great initiatives that we're up to. But I know what has driven many of you here, and that's about public safety and about the safety of this community, not just locally, but throughout the community. I'm going to address that, but I also want to, and it's my number one priority as your mayor. But we also have a presentation from our police chief. We're going to talk about, some of the initiatives that we're up to, something that we're working on with the King County Prosecutor's Office. But our number one priority at City Hall is to make this a safe city and to respond to violent crime and to respond to even the quality of life crimes. And so while we talk about some of these things, I want you to know we have our eye on that ball, because I know that's at the end of the day, that's what matters for all of us. We're thrilled that you're here. We do have my management team, the individuals who make up the department heads. Could I ask all the folks that are part of management team to stand up or raise your hands? Let's give them a round of applause. These are people that run your departments, from public works to parks and those kinds of things, obviously our police department. All right, well, let's get started. And again, sometimes I talk a little fast. One of the key things is we've got a couple of presentations. I want to make sure I get you this information, but I don't want to just talk at you. The most important part, like I said, is we want to hear from you. And so we're going to get through that. If you have a question, go ahead and throw your hand up in the air. We'll try to address it either right away or maybe when you come up during that time. This is actually what we're going to be talking about today. My presentation about some of the initiatives. We're going to talk about public safety with the chief. And then Marwan Saloom, our Public Works Director, is going to be talking about some of the transportation projects with overlay and some of those kinds of things, just to make sure that you're aware of what the summer holds. And then neighborhood feedback, that's where you guys get to participate. All right, you heard from our city council and the individuals that are here. We've got a very strong council, and we have a great working relationship, and they work hard. They're good partners. We've accomplished a lot, and I think we've got, as you'll see, the initiatives that we're working on. This is the management team that I introduced or had raised their hands. These are all of the departments that are representative. I meet with each one of these department directors every Monday morning at 10 a.m., but also throughout the week. What I love about city government, it's all about the future. It's all about public policy and trying to look around corners and figure out where we're going. This is where we're going. We've got some great economic development news, and this is ongoing. We've got Maurice's coming in right over there in that plaza. That's a clothing store. This is just a sampling of just some of the new businesses that are coming. Acoustics just actually is going to open up a major business here. Our economic development, our request for proposals. As you may have heard, and we're going to talk about the Performing Arts and Events Center here pretty quickly. Right next to where the Performing Arts and Events Center is going to go, or where it's being built right now, or it's coming out of the ground, right next to that is where a hotel is going to go. The request for proposals, the RFP, closes this Friday. So a lot of things are happening. Right over to the left is the diagram of the fully built-out vision of our downtown. And then that's essentially in the upper hand right-hand corner is what it's supposed to look like, and also in the bottom right-hand corner. This is where Town Square Park is right now. We're going to talk about that. This is where the PAC is, where the old Toys R Us site is. The hotel's going to go right here. This is the old the old Target site, the 7.5 acres that we purchased, and later this year we're going to do an RFP for that as well. So this entire area, which was blighted, is soon to be developed. So Town Square Park. Does everybody remember the old AMC movie theater? Remember that? It was there for years and years. In a very short period of time, in fact, put this on your calendars, July 9th, the Saturday after the 4th of July, you are going to have a brand new Town Square Park. We had a first iteration, which is just to set aside a land, put some grass on, put a couple basketball courts, but that was always just going to be a first iteration. This is what is going to be the jewel of our downtown, and you're going to have a great lawn, a splash park, playground equipment, permanent restrooms, and with a green vegetative roof on it, with the picnic shelter with a green vegetative roof, a pathway, a walking and running pathway that'll be distanced out so people can spend either the lunch breaks or their afternoons going around this. A great lawn. We're going to have a veterans memorial. This pathway here will be permeable along with the pavement, and here with we'll have a place to gather. Many of you have probably seen the permanent holiday tree where we gather as a community during holiday season and Christmas time. And then it's just going to be a really great area. The utilization of the entire 4-acre site. We've got the basketball court for the little kids, for my little guy, and for your little folks as well. And then also the half court for the adults. We wanted to activate the property, and of course picnic benches everywhere. So this again is really the product of some great visioning by our council and by staff, and it's going to be just a truly great amenity for decades to come for this community. Because of the way we started, because of how Federal Way developed, we have always been missing that core, and that's really what the past 2 years and what the future is going to look like, about developing the core of our city, a city that we can be proud of in the future. So again, July 9th, it'll be noon. We'll have bands and bouncy houses for the kids. This is what it used to look like when I first took office, and it was absolutely urban blight. Right? It's going to be an urban oasis here before you know it. Keep in tune also for your kids and for family. We'll have movie nights like we did that first summer. So the first time we had movie night, we had about 1,000 people there. This is what it looks like right now, and it'll be transformed in just the next couple of months. Okay, let's talk about the transformation of downtown and the Performing Arts and Events Center. Now, everybody knows that this was highly controversial for well over a decade. One of the things that we did, and I'm not going to belabor the point, but we pulled together financial experts and venue experts to make sure that if we went forward on this land, that we got $5 million from the state to buy the land, that it would be financially viable and not a drain on the resources, especially to public safety and other important departments. That commission, or the blue ribbon panel that we put together, not only said in a 137-page report, not only can you do this, you need to do this to activate your downtown. That will become a reality, in next summer. Actually, the countdown calendar in my office, right outside my office, says 54 weeks. This will be a reality. This is what the old site looked like right here, just blighted, empty, just vacant. This is where we're at right now. It's literally coming out of the ground. They'll be doing the first pouring. That was the groundbreaking right here with the council and myself and Senator Heidi, who was able to get us quite a number of monies. We've actually got about $9 million from the state, and we've been able to accumulate from other sources and from multiple sources, $22 million already out of the $32 million that are required. And we're working on getting that balance down. We've got about 3.5 years to get that balance down as low as we can before we have to make any kind of decisions about what that balance. But we had the money on hand to loan ourselves to be able to move forward and make this a reality right now. So we've got a great financial plan moving forward. Anyway, when you get a chance, go drive over there. I do it all the time. Go drive over there and literally watch the walls and watch the structure come out of the ground. It is the new Federal Way. All right, so I want to talk about the city initiatives. One of the things that we're doing right now is, many of you have probably noticed the number of panhandlers. One of the initiatives that I'm going to be rolling out at the next City Council meeting next Tuesday at 7 p.m. is our initiative regarding homelessness and what we're doing on that. The initiative, my initiative in regard to this issue, will focus on coordination of all the service providers. And I'm going to spend a great deal of time talking about this and giving a presentation. Deputy Chief Neal in the back, Steve Neal is the lead on this. We're going to have an internal task force that'll be focused on these camps, and I'm going to show you a picture in just a few minutes. But we've got quite an issue, or quite a problem, and we're going to talk about that. But the key thing is, it's about coordination of service providers. We've got so many great organizations and churches and service organizations that are providing care and relief, and some of that is coordinated, but we need to do a better job of making sure that it's a seamless production and a seamless referral. So we need to ensure the health and safety, not only of the people in the camps, but also the community as well. And also the formation of the task force at the City Hall in order to address this issue. There are 18 homeless camps in the city of Federal Way, at least. I toured 3 of them yesterday. This is actually the first one. This was north of Steel Lake. That's the Chief of Police and I, back on March 11th. That is a site, that's a car back there. That is just north of Steel Lake. And we had a fire where people were using multiple propane tanks, and it lit up 4 to 5 80-plus foot trees. And they went up in smoke. And this was about 50 yards from a housing development. So when I heard about that, I told the chief and a couple of the deputy chiefs, we're going to go out and I want to take a look at what this site looks like. This is only a fraction of what we found when we hiked into the woods. And we went about a mile, it's just on 304th, just east of Pack Highway. And had it been in the middle of summer, those entire 4 or 5 acres would have gone up in smoke. And God only knows what would have happened to the houses immediately to the right. This represents probably only about 10% of the things that are at that site. This was a site I went to yesterday at 350th and Pacific Highway. If you take a look over, not just here with all the debris, there's a site over here that's equally as big. There's a site over here. There was a site over to behind where I'm at right there. This goes on and on and on. And between hypodermic needles and burned debris, we are very fortunate in this community. We have not had a major fire in our forested areas. We have now started an initiative not only to clean up, this is publicly owned property. This property belongs to the people of this city. And we're going to clean this. We are going to clean every one of these camps that belong to you. And where this happens, the previous picture was on private property. That will be cleaned as well. And the cost of the cleanup will be attributed to the landowners. And so this is a program that we're doing, and we're not just kicking these people off and being, heartless. The key thing about this is it is not compassionate to allow people to live like this. It is absolutely disgusting. What we're going to do is we have started an initiative that I will, again, outline next Tuesday about our plan to make sure that we provide these people a pathway out of what I essentially refer to as oblivion. So Many of these people are drug addicted, they've reached the end of the road, and what we need to do is give them services and referrals and make sure that there's a seamless transition, and that's what we're working on, and make sure that we help these people and really get them out of these tents. So that's the homeless initiative, more details to follow. All right, airport noise. We had well over 150, almost 200 people at City Hall back in November. Many of you, how many people have noticed an increase in air traffic around your houses? Okay, we're working to address that. We have had countless conversations, numerous conversations with the FAA, with the airport, where I'm forming a task force. There's quite a number of people in this community with airline experience, FAA experience, and we want to utilize that human capital and really address this. The FAA at this point, there's been ongoing communication with the FAA and the airport. I've gone down to the airport and met with their leadership, met with the regional person with the FAA. I met with representatives from Senator Cantwell's office just today. On the phone with our congressman. And so this is an issue that we've got to address, and we've got to make sure that we streamline this process and do something to address the short-term and long-term approaches, and most importantly, that issue, quality of life. And that's something we're working on. By 2040, there will be 1 million more people in the Puget Sound area. We're expecting probably about a 20% increase in the population of Federal Way in the next 20 years. And the airport is the fastest growing airport in the country. So we need to make sure that we're engaged and working with the FAA to make sure that as these people come in and join us as neighbors in the region and as the airport grows, that we have a quality of life that's not greatly diminished. This is where we live. So watch for that formation. Now, I'm going to put out something in the paper and I'm going to send out an email, but we want to make sure that anybody who's got interest in airline or experience in airline industry, let us know. We'll get you on the task force. Okay, it'll be 7 to 9 people. City initiatives, we're enhancing the neighborhoods. Last year, do you guys know that long fence on 21st? It's about 1,000 feet long. Last year, we had well over, what's that? We painted it, yeah, and we had like 400 people there. That is just the beginning of the kind of initiatives that we're doing to clean up, to volunteer. We called it Let's Paint. There's a long stretch of fence on 320th from 21st over to First Avenue. That's next. And what we need to do is activate our neighbors and activate homeowners associations to beautify this city. We cannot allow this city to rot around us. We need to make sure that we all pitch in and do what we can. And so this is it was great to see so many people. 1,000 feet of fence was painted in a matter of hours. We're in the process right now of rebranding Federal Way. That's a process that's been ongoing for a long time, but won't belabor it. But as we move forward, look in the paper. The Federal Way Mirror does a great job of covering we've got their representative here today. They really cover it. So when you get your paper on those Friday mornings or over the weekend, take a look at it, and it'll tell you what we're up to. And I'm sure they're going to cover as we move into the critical stages of our rebranding to make sure that we position Federal Way in the regional marketplace to really put our best foot forward. Fun stuff. And we got Rusty George out of Tacoma, so we're using local talent. And then we're working right now to bring a branch campus or a satellite campus, whatever you want to call it, of either University of Washington or WSU. We're engaging in a needs assessment right now that's entering its final stages, and I've had ongoing conversations with the head regent at UW Tacoma and the two most recent presidents of WSU to make sure, along with working with the council to make sure that we are positioned to get a higher education facility in our community. Because what we really want to do is make sure that our kids have a pathway, not just for the kids, but for non-traditional students as well that may have missed that window. And that's a really exciting thing. This will go downtown, and again, it's part of economic development. We've got the police chief next, a lot more to do. I think I've probably gone over my time as usual, but thank you very much for your attention. I appreciate it. Here's the chief.
Good evening, everyone. As a result of gun violence, we've lost 2 young men from our community this year. I'd like to share with you just a little bit about these 2 incidents and also share with you our crime in-year number for 2015. On February 13th, it was a Saturday, Wesley Jennings, he's 16 years old, he was killed by gunfire. And the incident occurred not too far from this location. 5 days into our investigation, we made our first arrest. It was a 16-year-old male who was acquaintance to Wesley. And Wesley's death was tragic to our community, in part because of his age. So after the first arrest, 3 days later, we arrested a 14-year-old in connection with the homicide. And the investigation in this incident, it was a drug deal. It was a drug deal that had gone terribly, terribly wrong. Week and a half ago, April 4th, we had a shooting in which a 19-year-old man was killed, and he was just a few days from his 20th birthday. And what we know about this, we're working very hard to solve this crime, and we have a history within our police department to work very aggressively to solve homicides, and we have a very high rate of solving these type of crimes. We're working towards that. And what we know about this 19-year-old individual may have contributed to his death is that in January he was also involved in a shooting in which an 18-year-old young man was killed in Tacoma. So there could be a potential connection with that. So we're actively looking into that. We live in a community of almost 100,000 people. So from time to time, and I've been with this agency for 20 years, and I've been a law enforcement officer for 28. So throughout our history, we've had high-profile incidents happen from time to time. And what makes it unique is that so far this year we've had 2 homicides, and typically we experience 4 homicides in a year, give or take, in a given year. But what's unusual about these is the age of the kids involved. So one of the things is accountability. When we have incidents like this or a drive-by shooting, we want to make sure that we investigate, arrest those responsible for those crimes. We want to hold them accountable. That's a given. But how do we prevent things moving forward? How do we make our community healthy and strong moving forward? And I'm going to tell you right now, as your police chief, there are no easy answers. But we are working, whether it's a government entity, private sector, we're all working together to keep our community safe. One of the things is there's a direct correlation between crime and poverty rate. So whatever we can do to bring people out of the poverty rate, raise the median income, and the mayor talked about a lot of initiatives in the city to bring prevailing wage jobs to our city, elevate the median income. That's step one, and that's not an easy task, but there's a lot of people working towards that. Second issue is schools and education. Kids who are doing well in school, kids who graduate and go to college typically are not involved in violent crimes, such as the ones I described. So whatever we can do to close that gap, whatever we need to do to support our schools, whether it's facility, education, we got to support our schools because we all have things at stake here, and that's just community safety. So we got to have good school, strong school. Third, and we've been working on this for decades, a demand for drugs. Whether teenagers, adults, there's a tremendous demand for drugs in our community and in our country. I could tell you, looking at our crime numbers, 90% of property crimes, whether it's a vehicle, prowl, burglary, they're all connected to drug in some way. People who are addicted to drugs are committing much of these crimes. So we are part of working regionally to impact drugs. We have a detective assigned to a regional task force. We have a special investigations unit that works drug cases. So if we can lower the dependency of drugs and chemicals in our community, we're going to just naturally lower the crime rate. And the last is accessibility of guns. And we're working with the county, other agencies, to have responsible gun owners to secure their weapon. Because where are these kids getting their guns? They're breaking into cars, stealing guns. They're breaking into homes and getting guns. They're buying them on the black market. So accessibility of gun is a problem. So I bring up things at macro issues, but I'm telling you that we're going to work hard as we can as a city. Public safety is #1 priority for the city. We have men and women working hard every single day to impact crime. But it's a systems approach. The police can't do it alone. The city can't do it alone. We have to all work together. So next I will share with you some crime numbers. When you look at crime, 85% of crime in Federal Way is probably not different in most communities. 85% of crime is property crimes. And 15% what we would consider persons crimes. And of the 15%, very rarely are persons crimes committed by a stranger. Generally speaking, even the 2 incidents, one incident I shared with you. It's usually by known individuals. And when we look at homicides, typically 50% of homicides in our city through the years have been domestic violence. So 15% of the time, so it's very rare that you're going to be assaulted by a stranger, type of an assault. But these are some of the reductions. Auto theft reduced by 12% last year. Commercial burglary down. Residential burglary was substantially down. Homicide rate from 2014 to 15 stayed at 4. And I shared with you earlier this year we've had 2 homicides year to date. And then larceny was down, and then sex offense was down. So when you look at the total crime for the year, 2015, one of the ways, as the population changes and the city's growing, the crime numbers are going to naturally go up. As more businesses come into town, retail stores and so forth, theft numbers are going to go up. So one of the ways you measure crime to see if it's rising or not is to look at it per 1,000 residents. And what I could tell you is that in 2015, this is the first year in our 4-year history of keeping NYBERG numbers that we're going to be actually below 100 crimes per 1,000 residents. So that's pretty good for us. So 2 years of crime reduction in the city of Federal, overall crime numbers. And the reason I say it's under 1,000 residents is that we're about 94,000 residents. So in our total crime was 9. These are homicide numbers for our 4 years, and typically we average about 50% of the homicides being domestic violence related. Property crimes, where we had the biggest impact. Mail theft was significantly down in 2015. Theft, larceny was down in 15. And then residential burglary, one of the lowest numbers that we've had in terms of residential burglary. And the importance of these crimes here, residential burglary, is it's really a true crime, meaning most people will report residential burglary. They may not report vehicle prowls or theft, but they will report when somebody breaks into their home. They feel very violated. So these are kind of like true numbers. So we're really working towards that, keeping those numbers down. Also, we were down 12% on auto theft, and this is another one of those crimes. It's a true crime. Everybody that gets their car stolen will report it because there's liability factors involved and so forth. So on average, we've been able to bring that down a little bit. And then one of the things that you may not be aware of is when we talk about involuntary committal, on average, our police officers in the field take someone into custody and take them to the hospital 1.5 times a day. There may be days that are more. So we are dealing quite a bit of people who are mentally ill. So I think there's a lot of work being done at the legislative level. I mean, this is one of the problems we're facing in our community that we need to address. So I wanted to just kind of bring that to your attention. And one of the things I wanted to point out to you is people are sometimes very reluctant to call 911. And we want to encourage you to call 911 because there's simply not going to be ever enough officers to be out there to see everything that's happening. But we encourage people to call 911, report suspicious individuals or suspicious vehicles. You'd be amazed how many arrests we make of burglary suspect or auto theft suspect just based on citizens calling in. So we need you to help us be the eyes and ears out there and to report things in. And if you're reluctant about calling 911, you can call a non-emergency dispatch number, and that number there will go to the dispatch center, to the call receiver, and that's the 835-2121. Okay, if you could program that into your phone. And I will be glad to answer any questions that you might have here in a little bit. Thank you very much.
I do want to say one thing in conjunction to what the chief said. I'm a former King County prosecutor. We've got a great relationship with the King County prosecutor. Dan Satterberg, our King County prosecutor, is starting an initiative referred to as the Shots Fired Initiative. It's a grant from the federal government to really get down into the numbers of who are the most likely offenders to commit violent offenses. Who are the offenders that have committed gun offenses, either possession offenses or violent offenses and those kinds of things. And a data-driven approach toward getting the most serious offenders off the streets. I can tell you from stolen cars to burglary to whatever the crime is, it is a very, very low number of offenders that are committing most of those crimes. And when you take those people off the streets, those numbers drop. That's exactly what happened when Norm Mailing was our King County prosecutor. He dropped car theft by over 50% in a very short period of time by the top 10 list and that CTI approach, the car theft initiative. It's that kind of smart policing and smart prosecution that'll make quality of life crimes drop and have the bottom drop out. That's what we're going to work on here, especially in regard to violent crimes. We've reallocated resources to the north, where we had a high violent crime incident, and we'll continue to do that kind of smart policing to make sure that we make your neighborhood safe and every neighborhood safe. So the initiative that he is actually getting the funding for is referred to, it's a Department of Justice grant, referred to as the Shots Fired Initiative. And so I'll keep you guys informed about as that moves forward, and that just means that we have more resources, more tools in the toolbox to address those offenders that are driving those numbers up.
Good evening. My name is Marwan Saloom, Public Works Director for the city, and I'm going to give you just a quick update as onto our construction project that's going to be taking place in 2016. This is the map, and this is the list of the project. The first project is 2016 asphalt overlay, where the contractor is already full speed ahead, and the first schedule that they're working on is on 47th Avenue between Dash Point and Southwest 320th. And the other project they are working on is in Twin Lake. There's a section in Twin Lake that made the list for the overlay project, and the contractor is working on those. The other two projects we have is one on 356, a section between 2nd Avenue and 6th Avenue, and the other one is on 336 between 1st Avenue and 9th. The second project we have is Saghalie Middle School Safe Route to School project. That project is under design, and we're anticipating to have the project out to bid in May and construction to start in June. And hopefully we'll be able to get the project completed during the summer break, and when the school kids get back in the fall, hopefully the project will be fully completed. The third project is Pacific Highway South. This is a major project that's going to go all the way from 340th to 359th. That project is in the process of going out to bid. We are anticipating construction to start in July or August, and that project is going to take about 1.5 to 2 years to complete. It's a major improvement. It's going to be similar to what we have on Pacific Highway between 272nd and 340th. The fourth project is South 352nd. This is a new street that's being extended between Enchanted Parkway and SR 99. The hope for that project is to relieve some pressure off of 348. So if you're going to Costco or Home Depot or any of the businesses on 352nd and Enchanted Parkway, this way you're able to go all the way to SR 99, 352nd, turn in, and that will get you right into Costco. That project is under construction at the present time, and we anticipate that project to be open to traffic by July of 2016. So this project hopefully is going to provide us the relief that we are hoping for. School zone enhancement, the council authorized staff or appropriated budget for 5-year program to have school enhancement at different schools throughout the city. And this year is the last year for that program, and we have 4 schools that will get the benefit of that program, where you're going to have larger sign, speed limit indicator as to the speed limit. And those projects are Lakota Middle School, Lake Grove Elementary School, Mark Twain Elementary School, and Nautilus Elementary School. The next project is the flashing yellow arrow retrofit. I'm assuming you have seen those around the city, and we have 17 projects scheduled for 2016. We got some federal money, about $1 million, to construct those retrofit on all of the signal within the city. As I said, there's about 17 signals scheduled for 2016. The contractor will start working on those in June, and hopefully we'll have them done sometime in August. The last project I have for you is that sidewalk improvement at South 316 and Pete Van Graack Power Way. This is where the mayor just indicated that we have the park that's being developed at the present time, Town Square Park. This is the sidewalk on the north side and on the west side, where we are rebuilding that sidewalk to meet city standard. The sidewalk on the east side, we are going to be applying for grant funding, federal grant funding, to get that project constructed. We have it under design at the present time, where we are acquiring the necessary right-of-way, and we'll have that project under construction, hopefully next year. That's conclude the transportation list. The only thing that I would like to highlight for you also, we have a free recycling event that's going to take place this Saturday on April 16th, and it's going to be at the Wild Wave, and any recycling material you have, the door will be open between the hour of 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. And you're welcome to bring whatever you have As I said, there's some brochure at the front desk. You'll be able to take a look at the list that they will be able to accept if you bring it in. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Marwan. So this is the time in the meeting in which we'd like to hear from you. Now, one of the things we're going to do before we get started, one of the things we're going to do, now if you have a particular question, you guys, I brought every director at the city, I've got police officers, so if you have a particular issue, one of the things we're going to do is we make sure we get your name and your phone number, and we're not just going to hear you and nod and say, well, thanks for coming. We're going to follow up with you. You're going to hear from a department director, and we're going to follow up, and you're going to get a detailed answer, and we're going to keep following up on it to stay on top of it.
There's a lot of housing going on Federal Way. I'm kind of concerned about the density of this housing, the amount of apartment buildings going up. Well, it's going to impact police matters, schools and stuff. Can you speak to that issue?
Now, Federal Way has been impacted in the very short term, but this is sort of like a tsunami that was a long time coming way off the shore. The permits and the applications for these things came in, 3-4 years ago. So we've got 3 major apartment complexes that are staged to come in. The first one, Park 16, down on 356th, and that had a number of units, and that has had an impact on our call. It's also had a tremendous impact on our schools and the classroom. I spent a lot of time talking with our absolutely fantastic new superintendent, Tammy Campbell, about impacts in regard to classroom size and that kind of thing. Then we've got, Kids Corner on 336th. That just came online. And then we've all seen across the street where the old bus barn, that comes online pretty soon, and we've all seen that shoot up out of the ground. We have got to be much more proactive in this community before we allow those kinds of things to really pancake or to domino their way into our community. We're saying, okay, we need a complete inventory of multifamily housing, single-family housing, and compare this to other cities. And we need to make sure that our zoning is right. Once somebody puts an application and it's zoned for that, you can't go back and say, we're not going to allow this. So that's where we need to be much more proactive and make sure that we incentivize or de-incentivize locations that are going to have a very, very negative impact.
Hi, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to ask a question about the youth crime and violence, and I'm just wondering if there's any kind of efforts at prevention, working maybe with the SROs or anything, at earlier stages to kind of, before things get to turn bad and violent.
There are immediate things that we're working on. We talked about not being able to do it alone, but we do partner with the school. We have 5 school resource officers within the school. We partner with communities in schools. We are working with AmeriCorps. I mean, we're partnering with a lot of different organizations to do reach out and to impact, prevention and education component. So it's a work in progress, and it's just not our agency. There are a lot of social agencies and government all working together to impact crime. And we are part of the South King County Coalition Against Gang efforts as well, trying to reduce gang activity in our community as well. So there's a lot of work being done.
And Don, one of the things I did shortly after the horrible crime that occurred, right near here, is with the chief's help, I gathered together all the CSOs, and my question is, tell me about the gang. What is going on in regard to criminal intelligence or the intelligence that they know about gang activity in the high schools? Who is going to replace, while we found those individuals that we believe and they'll be tried for this, while we're going to try those, who's next up? Who's going to take their place and who's going to commit hopefully not, but who do we believe are the next possible offenders? And they're working on that. We were able to turn around that crime and turn it into arrests and prosecutions within a very brief time because of that network and because of the CSO cooperation.
It's been mentioned numerous times, the need for the 3 major agencies in the city to work together, that being the police department, the school district, and the city. I'm wondering if those 3 entities would be willing tonight to commit to forming some sort of a committee or task force, if you will, that would involve parents that are concerned about this happening in our community.
We'll explore that. I commit to you that we'll explore that. Certainly I'll talk to the chief about it. I'll talk to Tammy Campbell about it, and we'll explore that. I've had somebody suggest this to me, just in all candor. I had somebody suggest this to me, one of the council members probably about a week ago, You can see we're doing a task force on the FAA, we're doing a task force on the homelessness issue. I want to make sure that, and I mean this, I don't want to engage in empty rhetoric, and I don't want to engage in empty gestures. And I'm not going to just do something because it's going to look good in the paper or because it's because it seems like it'll be popular for 5 minutes and then nothing comes of it. We want to make sure that when we do something, we do it right, we do it comprehensively, and there is an outcome on the end that is objectifiable. And so we've got a great police department. I hear what you're saying. I'll think about it. I hear the support in the room. But the question is, and I like the idea of collaboration with the parents, and I like that idea, but I want to see, what would objectifiably come out of it. And what are we looking to accomplish? Obviously, the goal of the police department and of city government is to make this a safe community. But I don't want to engage in empty rhetoric and empty gestures.
This question is to all the leadership of Federal Way. Listen, I'm very excited about the diversity that is coming forth in Federal Way, particularly around the result of gentrification in Federal Way. And my question is a concern around the population increase, crime, and diversity. And I'm very excited about diversity, but my concern is what are we going to do to educate, train, and teach our community as well as our city that crime does not have a color. I'm concerned if we do not educate people that crime does not have a color,
right,
then we will have a problem.
Well, I think it is about messaging, and I think it's about making sure, and it's not just about taking the corners out of things, it's about how we talk about it, how we address it. Once once a crime occurs and an apprehension occurs, I think we talk about conduct, and I think and keep it centered on that, and make sure that what we're talking about is addressing conduct and addressing young people before they get to that point where they commit crimes. And it has nothing to do with color. It has to do with opportunity. It has to do with poverty, and it has to do with sometimes drugs or alcohol, and essentially taking wrong turns. I can tell you, I spent 19 years of my life as a prosecutor. I spent a lot of time thinking about this very issue, and most of it occurs. What determines the course of people's lives occurs in a building like this, and good mentors, and making sure that they make good decisions early on. And it's about us raising these children to be good citizens. But in regard to the diversity issue, it is important about how we message that and how we talk about our community.
So are there any initiatives within our community to help train and teach the community about this awareness and this ideal in understanding the diversity in terms of crime?
Well, and maybe that's one of the things. I have been thinking about this issue since the council member and the suggestion about a task force or a group of concerned parents. That seems like something that we could talk about as well. One of the reasons why we're doing the branding, and I think we all know that in the region, Federal Way for a number of years had a bad rap in regard to crime or what's occurring socioeconomically in the city or opportunities in our downtown. We need to lift ourselves up. We need to make sure that we're making the right decisions to move Federal Way forward and be a destination, a place where people want to be, where you're raising your children, you're raising your family, that you want to stay here and invest here. And the more that we can make our streets better, our community better, businesses coming here and make it safe. People are going to want to stay. Your children are going to want to stay here. We're going to have a community we can be proud of, and that people are going to want to move here. And all of it has to do with making sure that we've got good schools that bring people up. We absolutely have to have our schools succeed. So I'll explore that issue about the parent group or task force to address some of those issues, because I think that has a lot to do with it as well.
Better directed at the chief too. Is there anything, again, that we can do, and I know you've named a couple things, so I don't want to just keep repeating, but anything else that we've seen around the country, perhaps, that has worked when a community kind of sees the writing on the wall and sees us themselves drifting into trouble? Anything else that we can do?
There's so many areas that all of you could have impact. It could be working in the schools, it could be a variety of different things, but I don't know what that is for each individual person. Maybe it's a task force, it's that, but what I could tell you is that we got to work together. So in terms of, if you're not involved at all, but maybe just being the eyes and ears for the police and reporting suspicious activity. If you're talking about school issues, maybe being a mentor within the school. And I do know, talking with school resource officers, yeah, there's times that activities pick up at the school, things calm down. But what I'm telling you, when I'm talking to my officers who are there every day, I mean, overall they feel the school's safe. When you're looking at our school district, 22,000 kids. These are big schools. These are 4A schools. So it's a community within a community, and you're going to have incidents there. But the report I'm getting, yes, there are times we have a student who brings a gun, you bet. They're going to be held accountable. They're going to be expelled, period. Game over. You know, we need to work with the parents. Solution isn't always expelling kids either. You know, trying to find that solution. It's not always easy, but if you're referring to school, yes, there are parts that we can all do to make our schools safer.
And the whole community, and just being out in the community
Yes.
as well.
So,
Not
yeah,
just within the school day.
I just don't know which angle to answer the question here, but if we're talking about schools, you bet. People can get involved, mentor kids, communities in schools is a program that does that. The school, I think, is going to launch other programs to mentor kids, because sometimes these kids are not getting the guidance and direction at home, right? I mean, parents need to be involved, but that's not always the case. And quite often, when we're dealing with issues, yes, we're dealing with parents who have serious issues.
Hi there. So I am a property owner in Federal Way and a parent, and also employed within the city limits. So my question is not really a question, it's more just a challenge. Are we really getting a true sense of whether our students, staff members, feel safe inside of their community of learning?
But I can tell you, when I learned that it was a 14-year-old that was alleged to have, we got to make sure that we follow this process, that was alleged to have committed this horrible crime, along with another high school student, I was horrified. It was tragic, because we are not going to be defined by one event. But it's not just one event. It could be symptomatic, and likely is symptomatic of a much deeper problem, and we need to address that aggressively in a smart way, not through platitudes, but through hard work, teamwork, community.
My name is Darlene Coleman. One of the things that I'm not really hearing is about our families, our parents. As I know myself, with kids of color, and also with other colors, kids not of colors, a lot of the things start in their homes. How do we help those parents to mobilize and come together to as a village, to help our children, all of our children?
Maybe it's that task force we heard suggested before, that one of the council members suggested previously, about bringing, people together and bringing, families together in sort of an advisory of parents and involved people, sort of PTA, cubed, PTA, or the community and the parents, and having a conversation about that kind of thing.
The comment I have is regarding the vacant space in the community. And I'm not talking buildings, I'm talking open space, or particularly on Pacific Highway. There's a tremendous amount of debris, homeless debris. Some of the property is owned by the city, and obviously private property is up to the property owner, but I'm wondering who at the city is responsible for those areas, particularly if we are aware of situations that may not warrant police response, but definitely need to be addressed.
The Community Development Department and Code Compliance, we actually, with graffiti abatement, that's something that we're working on, litter pickup, that kind of thing. There are code compliance officers. We increase staffing for those code compliance officers, and when we get complaints in either about litter or graffiti, we act on it as fast as we can. Okay, you guys, we've reached 9:02. Thank you so much for coming out. Really appreciate it.
According to Mayor Farrell, we have a vibrant future with a lot of work ahead of us. If you'd like to stay connected with your city, like the City of Federal Way and Mayor Jim Farrell's Facebook pages. You can also stay up to date on all the developments of the Performing Arts and Event Center, Town Square Park, and more at the City of Federal Way's new website. To watch video of city meetings and events, check out Federal Way's YouTube channel. And of course, you can turn to Federal Way TV Channel 21 on Comcast Cable. I'm Kathy Arndt, and we hope to see you next time right here on New Day Federal Way.